Well, everyone loves a road trip, and this one takes us to the Hunter Valley. Our journey begins at the mouth of the Hunter River at Newcastle. We're going to explore the valley that has been formed by this river and its tributaries. And our first port of call is the charming and historic river port town of Morpeth. With its heritage-listed buildings and beautiful riverside setting, it's a great coffee stop. Just a few kilometres upriver from Morpeth is the town of Maitland. This is the town where my mother once lived. She was born and raised in this house in Steam Street, Maitland. She had vivid memories of the 1955 flood when the Hunter River broke its banks and caused one of the greatest natural disasters in Australia's history. So now we're heading out of Maitland and onto the Hunter Freeway to one of Pokolbin's premier attractions, Hunter Valley Gardens. This is the largest display garden in the Southern Hemisphere and is the brainchild of Bill Roche. Hunter Valley Gardens hosts yearly events such as a Christmas light spectacular, snow time, and during our visit, mega creatures. The themed gardens here include a Chinese garden, a formal garden, an Italian grotto, a lakes walk, an oriental garden, a rose garden, a storybook garden, and a sunken garden with a 10-metre high waterfall. Our accommodation for the next 2 nights at Pokolbin is the Leisure Inn, and of course we are surrounded by a region boasting 150 vineyards. We'll visit a couple of these as we think our general disposition will be enhanced by the purchase of a goodly number of fine wines. We've come to Scarborough Wines to purchase bottles of Chardonnay. Nearby is the Len Evans Lookout. This is a great location to watch the sunset. next day finds us travelling along Mount View Road, then Millfield Road to Kunjiway. Then we'll drive along the Wollombi Road to Wollombi, thence to Broke along Paynes Crossing Road, then we'll loop back to Pokolbin. This is Kunjiway, where my wife's father once owned a cattle farm. We have fond memories of camping here with friends. Now we are driving through the beautiful Wollombi Valley. The word Wollombi means meeting place, and it is a meeting place in more ways than one. Firstly, the Kunjiway and Wollombi watercourses meet here. There is a convergence of 3 roads, one from Cessnock, one from Broke, and one from Wiseman's Ferry west of Sydney. Wollombi sits on what is now called the Convict Trail, or the Great North Road. This road was built by convict labour, often working in irons between the years 1826 and 1836. It was built to connect Sydney with Newcastle and the upper Hunter Valley. Many buildings in Wollombi Village and surrounding private homes are well-preserved examples of Australia's convict and colonial history. And finally, Wollombi was an important ceremonial meeting place for Aboriginal groups, and in nearby Yango National Park there are significant Aboriginal sites dating back over 13,000 years. We continue on the Convict Trail towards the regions around Broke. Sometimes it's on the road less travelled that you find unexpected gems like this newly established boutique winery, whose owner was so amiable and proud to let us taste his wines. We stayed a while and purchased a rosé and a Cab Sauv. The next day finds us heading from Pokolbin towards the town of Patterson. But before we go any further, let's go back in time and establish a timeline of events that led to the British settlement of the Hunter Valley. In 1770, on the 10th of May, James Cook, sailing up the east coast of Australia aboard the Endeavour, made an entry into the ship's log, noting a small round rock or island. Today we call that rock outcrop Nobbies. And what we call Newcastle was once known by the Aborigines as Malumbimba. Of course, Aboriginal communities have lived in the Hunter region for tens of thousands of years. The first Europeans to make contact with the Aborigines of the Hunter region were escaped convicts. In 1788, the first fleet had arrived in Australia to establish a penal colony at Sydney Cove. 2 years later, in 1790, when the settlement was still trying to establish itself, 5 convicts slipped out of the harbour in an open boat. They came ashore on the beaches north of Newcastle and lived with the Warramai people for 5 years before being discovered and returned to Sydney. Then, in 1797, Governor Hunter sent Lieutenant John Shortland in pursuit of another set of absconders. Shortland noticed that the harbour behind Nobby's was actually a river and named it Hunter's River. Then, in 1801, Governor King sent a survey party to Hunter's River aboard His Majesty's ship, the Lady Nelson. One of the members of that team was explorer and botanist William Patterson. The survey party, on entering Hunter's River, noticed coal deposits, red cedar, midden shells, all of which could be exploited for the benefit of the colony. It was recommended that a settlement be established. The new settlement, comprising of convicts and military guards, became something of a hellhole. The convicts, many of them Irish rebels, were put to work mining coal. Newcastle was variously called Coal River, Kingstown after Governor King, and then Newcastle after England's most famous coal port. When Newcastle ceased being a penal settlement in 1822, land grants were offered to settlers prepared to make the journey up the Great North Road. And then settlers began arriving by sailing vessels to the port of Morpeth. The homes of the first generation of settlers would have looked something like this. Subsequent generations built more elaborate structures, like this one at Tocal. This is Tocal House, and we have called here on our way to Patterson. We can't help but admire these enormous fig trees that shade the house. Tobacco, vineyards, Hereford cattle, these were among the profitable enterprises that flourished here. Nearby is Tocal Agricultural College. We are following the Patterson River towards the town of Patterson. We've chosen to stay 2 nights at the Kings and Queens Boutique Bed and Breakfast, formerly called Patterson Lodge. Originally, this place was a bank. Now it has charming, old-worldly guest rooms, a balcony, a cosy bar, and even a bank vault converted into a reading room. We'll use this place as our base to explore the surrounding countryside. Our first excursion follows the Allen River, a tributary of the Patterson River, which in turn flows into the Hunter. We are calling in at a camping ground called Camp on Allen, which is near the township of East Crestford. We will catch up with friends who are holidaying here in their caravans. Tonight, we have our dinner at the Patterson Tavern, a family-friendly pub just near our accommodation. The next day finds us at a locality called Allen Brook, and a cute, historic Anglican church with a graveyard. In the graveyard are the tombs of William and Mary Boydell. The two met aboard the ship which brought them to Australia in 1836. Mary was the daughter of an Anglican bishop. The story goes that to gain permission to marry the bishop's daughter, William Boydell had first to build a church in which Mary could worship. Boydell built the church to the bishop's design on his property, one of the earliest land grants of the district. We have driven from Patterson to Allenbrook. Now we are travelling along the Bingleborough Road to the town of Dungog, and the scenery is stunning. Dungog is a thriving country town that attracts many day visitors to the events that it hosts. Dungog is the place where you can buy a t-shirt that reads Done New York, Done London, Done Paris, Dungog. There is an annual film festival that takes place at this theatre. It is reputed to be the oldest licensed theatre in New South Wales. It began operation in 1913. About 30 minutes out of Dungog is Chichester Dam, constructed over 100 years ago. We will take a look and then return to Patterson via the Salisbury Gap Road. And that will be the conclusion of our road trip.